I want to play you one piece of tape, guys, that was played on the cross of Cohen this morning that had all the media reporters reacting, saying, my God, he sounds so different. And this is a very different version of Michael Cohen than the jury has been presented with thus far. I'm not sure our audience will find it jarring or surprising because we've played a lot of Michael Cohen tape over the past few days. But take a listen to this. It was played in court today. It's a SOT from Michael Cohen's reaction to Trump's indictment on his Mea Culpa podcast, March 2023.
So I want to thank the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and their fearless leader, Alvin Bragg. He is about to get a taste of what I went through, and I promise you, it's not fun. Picturing Donald Trump being led through the booking process, getting fingerprinted, having his mugshot taken, fills me with delight and sadness all at the same time. Sadness, I say, because what an embarrassment it is to the office of the presidency to have a former president of the United States handcuffed and mugshotted before the entire world.
So, Andy, you've been pointing out all along that they really don't have much. If we go down your list, they have to prove falsity. They have to prove a scheme to defraud. And they have to prove that he had an intent to conceal an underlying crime. And that's the alleged election violation, the campaign finance violation. And where is the proof of that? Where is the election violation? And there's a debate in legal circles about whether they have to actually prove an election violation or whether they just have to prove he intended to violate the campaign finance laws, which is even more attenuated. But really, it comes down to Cohen for the most part. I mean, Cohen's the one who talks about the meeting with Weisselberg. Cohen's the one who submitted the invoices. The case rests largely, almost entirely on Cohen and entirely as to that third piece of the elements. And my question to you is, do tapes like this, his serial falsehoods, just completely wipe that out? I mean, are we at the point now where the judge actually could consider entering a directed verdict?
So I think, Megyn, we have to take a second and take a step back and just remember, and I'm telling you what I tell myself at least a couple of times a day. There's often a difference between, especially when you have a case that's covered as intensely as this one, with what our understanding of the evidence is, because we can take it in bits and then analyze it legally, versus what the jury is taking in the courtroom. The jury doesn't get me and Dave to come out every 30 minutes and explain to them what it all means, right?
It would be so helpful.
But the thing is, there's nothing, to me, the unseen dynamic in a criminal trial, probably any kind of trial, but especially a criminal trial, is how the judge, number one, relates to the jury, but also how the judge treats the prosecution's case. Because the jury takes its cues in terms of how it understands it, how it at least presumptively feels about the government's case from the way the judge is acting, right? Mm-hmm. So we can do this antiseptic exercise to say, as I've done, falsity, fraud, other crime, right? That's all very neat and clean. But what the jury is getting is Judge Merchan is very solicitous of the government's case. The Trump defense is acting like the NDAs, even if they say they're legal, that they're not, that they need distance from it. The judge is allowing the prosecutors to talk about a conspiracy as if it's already been proved. The judge has allowed Pecker and Cohen to testify that in Pecker's case, there was a non-prosecution agreement and a fine paid to the FEC. And in Cohen's case, that he pled guilty to campaign finance violations. So the prosecutors are kind of acting like the other crime is not something they have to prove. It's an established fact already. And I don't, it's going to be very important what the jury instructions are in this case, maybe more so than even in the usual case. But I don't know that the case we're analyzing is the case the jury is perceiving.
Yeah.
And on the one of that last point that you made, this goes to me, this is one of the biggest disconnects in the case. As you said, Bragg is now saying, I don't even have to establish the other crime. I only have to show that he intended to commit it. That's not how the criminal law works. The way the criminal law works is if you commit an act, we infer your intention from the act, and it's pretty easy. If you rob a bank, we know what you have on your mind, right? But what the law is very concerned about is if we're criminalizing your thoughts, then we require strong evidence that that's actually what you were thinking. So in theory, you should have to prove more, not less, if what you're saying is we only have to prove that he intended the crime. Like there should be some unambiguous evidence that Trump had the campaign finance laws on his mind and he had a reasonable enough understanding of them that he willfully violated a known legal duty. That's the kind of evidence that you want when it's just an intent crime. And instead, what they're saying is, I only have to prove like he intended to do it, as if that's a lower thing rather than a higher burden. So I just think the case we're talking about that we get to parse may not be the case the jury's perceiving in the courtroom.
Right. We're kind of ivory towers right now, not man on the street, taking it all in the way the jury's taking it in and experiencing it fresh-faced the way the prosecution's presenting it and the defense is poking holes in it. So Dave, what do you think so far? I mean, what's the narrative going to be? The underlying crime was what? That he received an illegal campaign contribution from Michael Cohen in the form of $130,000, and then he worked with Cohen and Weisselberg to cover it up and to document it falsely. That's basically it?
Correct. And the crime occurred when Michael Cohen paid Stormy Daniels $130,000. That was the campaign finance crime. And you don't have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, as Andy said, that that crime occurred. You just have to show that that's why they falsified the business records. So first you have to show that Trump was involved with the falsification of the business records, and that was intended to conceal the campaign finance crime. Now, I know there are some commentators who are suggesting that there's also some tax crimes that the state is going to allege because of the way they grossed up the payment to Michael Cohen. I am unclear on that. That just confuses me because Michael Cohen did pay taxes on that amount. So the state of New York doesn't seem to be out any money. So I don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the tax crime. Maybe Andy can help me on that one. But I think the best second crime they have to make this a felony is still the campaign finance crime. Now, on appeal, we'll see if the courts allow a state prosecutor to lean on federal campaign finance laws to elevate a state misdemeanor to a state felony. We'll see. Yeah,
especially when there is no campaign finance violation here. But let me ask you this. So do you agree, Dave, that the evidence they have that Trump was in on the alleged scheme boils down to that January 16th meeting with Weisselberg, or 17th meeting, with Weisselberg, Cohen, and Trump, and what Cohen is saying about Trump hearing the way that Cohen was going to bill it, and potentially also Cohen claims that Trump reassured him that there'd be no campaign finance problems with the law because Jeff Sessions, according to Cohen, Trump said, Jeff Sessions is in my pocket. Is there some other bombshell out there that supports Trump knew and was in on the documentation scheme?
The testimony that we heard from Jeff McCarthy that Donald Trump was a micromanager who expected him to negotiate bills down, I think is circumstantial evidence that Donald Trump is not going to just sign off willy-nilly on a $35,000 per month retainer payment unless he knew that this was for something very personal to him, the hush money payment. So I think you can
okay, but that doesn't get to the false documentation. That gets to, I knew what it was for. It was the Stormy hush money. I'm trying to get all the evidence that proves he knew they were going to write it down falsely. He was fine with that. He was in on that scheme, and he also had a willful intent to violate campaign. He knew that this was going to violate the campaign finance laws and had a willful intent to do that. So far in that latter point, all I've seen is the alleged conversation about Jeff Sessions. Don't worry, he's in my pocket. He's not going to come after you, David Pecker, or anybody else.
Right. Well, in February, they had that meeting in the White House where Michael Cohen alleges that he and Trump met, and Trump said, hey, are you okay? You need money? And then you'll get your checks for January and February. Go talk to Alan, meaning Alan Weisselberg. And so you'd have to believe that Donald Trump didn't know what Alan Weisselberg had come up with, this grossing up scheme, the way that they framed it, that Donald Trump really believed that this was for legal fees or legal expenses, that all this stuff was legit above board, when in reality, it does look like that Donald Trump was involved from soup to nuts, from the beginning to the end, in paying out the hush money and disguising it as these legal expenses. And perhaps it would have been a good defense if he said, yeah, I interpreted reimbursement as legal expenses, so there is no fraud here. But that was undone by Trump's own lawyer, Todd Blanche, to say no reimbursement whatsoever within the $420,000.
Do you owe back taxes? Pandemic relief is now over. Along with hiring thousands of new agents and field officers, the IRS has kicked off 2024 by sending over 5 million pay-up letters to those who have unfiled tax returns or balances owed. Don't waive your rights and speak with them on your own. Tax Network USA, a trusted tax relief firm, has saved over $1 billion in back taxes for their clients, and then they can help you secure the best deal possible. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, they can help you. Whether it's business or personal taxes, even if you have the means to pay or if you're on a fixed income, they can help finally resolve your tax burdens once and for all. Call 1-800-245-6000 for a private, free consultation or visit tnusa.com/Megyn. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.